The February 23rd meeting of the Board of State Canvassers is called to order. Good morning. It's our first meeting of the new year. It's the beginning of the 26th election season. And thanks for coming. First item on the agenda is a public comment. Do we have anybody online? No. We actually do have a public comment from Mr. Jeff Shepard. Good morning, sir. If you would sit down, there's a button on the base of the mic. If you would turn that button on, it will turn on the mic. And I would ask you to state your name and spell it for the clerk.
Yes. Hello, my name is Jeff Shaper, S-C-H-A-E, P as in Peter, E-R. And in this moment, I am speaking on behalf of Oakland County Board of Canvassers. I am a canvasser for Oakland County, and I'm here to support the Wayne County canvassers who sent a letter about the situation that happened in Hamtramck, which was very disturbing. And the reason being is that this problem in Hamtramck was reported over a year ago. And yet the Secretary of State's office and the AG did nothing to resolve it. And to me, that is very disturbing because this election that just transpired for mayor was badly executed. The recount showed that 3 precincts could not be counted. Ballots could not be taken because change could not be accepted, rightfully so because of the chain of custody not being secure. And we as citizens of Michigan feel like our election processes are not being done well. And Hamtramck is an example. And so the people of Hamtramck were not represented. The election was not clean. People of Wayne County and ultimately Michigan. So I know that this board can't really direct things, but at least you can keep these kind of things front of mind so that the people that can take action, which is the AG's office and the Secretary of State's office, can actually do something about it to make sure that the people of Michigan have fair, honest, transparent elections. Now, that's my first thing. Now, I'm going to switch hats a little bit, and I'm going to talk about
You can talk for you. You got about 1 minute.
Oh, I'll very quickly, Michigan Fair Elections Institute. We understand and we have seen a request for proposal 114 for new election machines. And I have to say, the proposal was well put together with the latest security standards. And I look forward to how the quotes come out. One of the things I do want to urge this body to be aware of is there are companies out there that do open source software, which means people can see the code. And as you know, a lot of election skepticism and criticism is that the machines are changing votes. Well, with open source software, the people can see the code that runs these machines, and I think would do a lot to alleviate the concerns that the public has. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You took it very well, yes. No alarms were set off. That's good. She's at the end. Lisa, are you addressing the same issue? So typically we'll do other business at the end of the agenda. That's what you indicated you wanted to do. Do you want to stay there? What do you think?
Ms. Capatina is from the Wayne County Board of Canvassers. I'm sorry. Oh, you are from the Wayne County Board of Canvassers? And so I assume you would be talking about the same issue?
I'd like to put that toward the end though. But can we get through the rest of the business and then actually deal with this as other business? That'll allow us a little more flexibility in conversation. Okay? Ma'am, we'll bring you up at the tail of the agenda. It's a short agenda. Item number 2 on the agenda is a consideration of the minute meetings for the December 15th, 2025 meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item number 3, we have the approval of the following dates for the Board of State Canvassers regularly scheduled 2026 meetings. Would you like me to read those? Yeah, okay. Here's the list. First would be on March 20th. Second would be April 17th. We have May 8th, May 28th, June 5th, July 31st, August 14th, August 24th, September the 4th, October the 23rd, 11 the 23rd, December the 4th, December the 11th, December the 18th, and December the 21st. Feel like the whole year has just gone by as quickly. Is there any discussion on dates? Short days.
No discussion.
Everybody okay with the dates? In that case, I would entertain a motion to approve those.
I move that the Board of State Canvassers approve the dates as just read by Chair House Camp for the calendar year 2026.
We have a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. I would ask all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item number 4 is the certification of the results of the special primary election for the office of State Senate District, State Senate 35th District. Director Brader.
Thank you, Chair Housecamp. So on February 3rd, 2026, there was a special primary election. This was to fill the vacant, to nominate candidates to fill the vacant 35th State Senate District. The district is in Bay, Midland, and Saginaw counties. So it crosses boundaries, and the Board of State Canvassers certifies the results of that state Senate election after they're certified by the county canvassers. I do want to commend both the county clerks and their staff and the municipal clerks and their staff and all the election workers who came together to pull this election off. It was not a date they had on their calendar going into the 2-year cycle. It was a special primary date. It was also challenging because some of the pre-election deadlines spanned the holidays and New Year's. And of course, they were contending with some weather. So all told, the local officials did an outstanding job of administering the special primary, and I just wanted to recognize them for that. There was a total turnout of about 45,000 votes in this special primary. And on the Democratic side, Cheddar Green was nominated with 16,085 votes. And on the Republican side, Jason Tunney was nominated with 18,232 votes.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions?
No.
Mr. Cordes? Seeing as how there's no questions, I'd like to proceed to the motions. There are 2 motions required here.
Based on an examination of the returns received by the Secretary of State for the February 3rd, 2026 special primary, I move that the Board of State Canvassers certify that the attached report is a true statement of the votes cast at the special primary for the offices certified by this board. I further move that the board certify that the persons named in the following, quote, list of nominees, end quote, are duly nominated for the offices indicated and are qualified to appear as candidates for such offices on the May 5th, 2026 special general election ballot.
Been moved. Do I have second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is any discussion on this one? There's not. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We have a second motion required.
I move that the Board of State Canvassers authorize the staff of the Bureau of Elections to represent the board in any recount of votes cast at the February 3rd, 2026 special primary election.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Moving right along. Item number 5 on the agenda this morning is the consideration of the proposed petition manual for candidates without a political party affiliation. I would give the floor to Director Brader.
Thank you. So this manual is part of Bureau of Elections and the Board of State Canvassers' ongoing effort to update, modernize, clarify all the manuals as we're going into filing season. So this manual is regard to candidates who are running without a political party affiliation. The changes we made to this manual are consistent with the other changes that we made to other manuals. We did put this draft out for comment. We did not get any comment. Perhaps that's because we had addressed similar issues and similar manuals that were put out previously. But in any case, what is before you for approval is the same manual that we put out for public comment several weeks back.
Thank you. Thank you, Director. Any comments from the board? Questions? Excellent. In that case, I would entertain a motion.
I move that the Board of State Canvassers approve the proposed petition manual, candidates without political party affiliation. Further, I move that the board direct staff to use the procedures described in the manual when processing petitions for state and federal office for candidates without political party affiliation, effective for petitions submitted after today. Finally, I move that the board authorize staff to make non-substantive corrections to this manual as needed without requiring separate approval from the board.
Do I have a second? Been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item number 7. Item number 6. Consideration of the proposed petition manual for new political party qualification. Director Brader, I would turn it over to you.
Thank you. So same comments. I won't repeat them all, but this is the new political party qualification manual.
Right. Any questions, comments?
I would just commend the board for bringing all the manuals up to date and making them consistent.
Agree.
I'm sure it is something that will be appreciated by the candidates and their attorneys.
Thank you. I would entertain a motion.
I move that the Board of State Canvassers approve the proposed petition manual, new political party qualification. Further, I move that the board direct staff to use the procedures described in the manual when processing petitions for new political party qualification, effective for petitions submitted after today. Finally, I move that the board authorize staff to make non-substantive corrections to this manual as needed without requiring separate approval from the board.
Support.
Seconded.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Moving right along. Item number 7 is this is a bit of a different one. We have a consideration of the disqualification of persons and organizations from collecting signatures. Director Brader, could you give us the background on this?
Sure, this goes back almost 4 years now. As many will recall, in the filing season in 2022, there were several candidates, including some judicial nominees and some high-profile candidates for governor that were not able to qualify for the ballot because of a large amount of fraud, a very large number of fraudulent signatures in the nominating petitions. So following that, in addition to the disposition of the petitions themselves, Bureau of Elections also referred this to the Attorney General's office for criminal investigation. I will note that this took a enormous amount of work for BOE staff and also for staff at the Office of Investigative Services, the Department of State, and I'm sure as well for law enforcement and the Attorney General's office as well. Ultimately, there were charges brought against some of the individuals involved in running the companies that that collected and submitted those fraudulent signatures. And a couple weeks back now, week and a half back, I think it was, there were two individuals who were convicted in a jury trial on a number of counts related to the fraudulent petitions that they submitted. The board does have authority to disqualify individuals from circulating petitions when they are known to have committed fraud. And so this, in the Bureau's estimation, is quite a clear instance of that happening, especially given that this has gone through the criminal justice system. So we're recommending that the board disqualify these circulators going forward.
Thank you, sir. I suspect this one will have some comment.
I think I was the only member of the board now who was on the board in 2022 when we were faced with so many petitions, which were obviously fraudulent and contained numerous forgeries. I'm glad that finally some of the perpetrators of this fraud have been prosecuted and convicted. I know that that Mr. Fracassi was a witness and obviously persuasive. Thank you, Mr. Fracassi. I wonder how many of the signatures that were submitted by these particular individuals do these individuals and firms account for the majority of fraud that we saw in 2022?
You would know better, Ryan. Go ahead.
I believe that's correct. I don't know 100%, but I believe that these two individuals, this is based solely upon the charges that were brought, were the owners of the company that gathered what was the roughly 70,000 signatures that were submitted that we suspected were fraud, that have been confirmed as fraud.
Do we know if there were other owners in those LLCs where those LLCs are still functioning?
I know in the instance of one of the companies, I believe it's First Choice LLC. I think they have at least one other owner. There was another individual who charges were brought that the jury did not convict. I think she might be an owner of the company or is somehow involved. I'm not even 100% on that, but I believe that there are at least there's at least one other person who's involved in some way with the company.
What does enforcement of this look like?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I think that this would, if the board approves this, I think we would put it on our website. We have our standard distribution list, so we would send it to the distribution list to say these individuals and these companies are not allowed to circulate for this period of 4 years. From there, we would leave it to a challenge. It's not something we're going to know by looking at the face of it, but I think evidence being submitted would render everything then invalid that would be gathered. So
Is that
by those
Yeah.
circulators.
that effective immediately, or would this be? No, well, I'm just saying, like, if there was a candidate who had used some of these, I don't know why they would have, but if, for example, they had used these individuals over the last month or so, would those signatures be disqualified? Or would it only be after, like, signatures collected after we took this vote?
Yeah.
I guess our recommendation, I mean, that's really, I think, a question for the board, but I think in fairness, it would probably, our recommendation would be to make it prospective.
Yeah.
So anything that, I mean, again, hopefully,
No one, yeah.
hopefully, no one has hired these folks, and if they did, they've changed their approach, but I think to be fair, it probably would only be going forward.
Understood.
So it would be anything that was active as of today would still be considered a valid transaction,
Right.
which would also mean that if they were out collecting signatures for a petition or for a candidate that they're working on today,
Or a ballot question.
or a ballot question that they were working on today, could we also stipulate that as of today, they can no longer collect on that, or would we allow them to continue to collect on those petitions until those petitions reach submission? Yeah, I know, Heather, that's I still think that's a valid question, all right? If they're working on a petition right now today, and we sanction them for 4 years, which is what is being put forth here. Does that mean that anything that they do today now gets redlined and those petitions would have to continue gathering signatures with someone else?
I think what I would compare, the closest thing I compare it to is like a judicial vacancy. Well, when that happens, you know, like the individuals need to indicate as of when we announce that the judicial vacancy has become like a non-incumbent seat. What we typically say is everything collected up to that date is valid, but then the next day going forward after the designation of that office changes, you have to be using the correct designation of that office. And so I would just analogize it to that and say that going forward, you know, after today's date, anything that's collected by those circulators would be invalid.
I would agree with that. I remember when we went through that in the judicial race. That's a good way to look at it.
But I have a larger question. So there are 3 companies here, which are prohibited from circulating. But when we get petitions, we know who the circulator is, but we don't know what company has hired those circulators. So we don't really know whether these companies are violating whatever order of disqualification that we may issue. I mean, that might lead to a larger and longer discussion about holding companies responsible as well as individual circulators. So is there any way we know who's responsible?
So, I mean, there's a couple ways it could come about. I mean, we have very robust challenges that are made to candidates nominating petitions. And the challengers seem to be quite adept at uncovering information. So that would be one venue. And then the board, I mean, the board does have subpoena power in the context of this type of situation. So if we did encounter the kind of fraud that we did 4 years ago, the board would have the ability to subpoena various entities and try to determine whether, in addition to just the individuals who are circulating, whether they were actually working for one of these companies.
So we have means of finding it.
Yes.
Mr. Brewer, I'm assuming that as an attorney who challenges on a fairly frequent basis, that you would certainly ask that question, right?
Well, we certainly would investigate, Mr. Chair, and see if we can determine who the firms were that circulated. I frankly would suggest that this board proactively require people who file to disclose whether they are using any of these now disqualified firms. I mean, we'll do our best to try to ferret out who is circulating, but we may not be able to know either. I think you should affirmatively require petition filers to disclose whether they're working with these firms.
It's a really interesting suggestion, because otherwise we have no way of knowing whether these nefarious actors are active again.
Are we allowed to do that?
We can. Within our province, I think, isn't it? Had a
lot of on the spot questions here.
enthusiasm down at that end of the table.
You really have to have a textual source in a statute to be able to require this. I'm not prepared to say that you do or don't, as of today. Did you hear me, Marilyn? Nobody can hear me. I'm talking right into the phone.
You're kind of fading out there a little bit.
We have to have a textual source for your authority to do that. I'm not sure that we do. I'm not prepared to say one way or the other today. We'd have to take a look at it. Maybe Adam and may have more thoughts on that too, since he's more ingrained in this on the day to day than we are. So
But so it's uncertain. Is that what I hear you saying? Kind of a gray area?
yeah, I'm not, you just asked this question today, so I'm not prepared to, it seems, I'm not aware of a textual hook for this, something that says you have the authority to require something that's not required by statute. So we'd have to figure out how to, have sort of an inference, something like that. Not sure that we can do that, where the legislature is usually pretty clear. At least with respect to requirements for what, petition sponsors and circulators and all that need to do. So
So, can I go first one? Director Brader, is it possible that you mentioned putting this on the website for elections? Is it possible that when this goes on the website, it could also stipulate that if you're a campaign using one of these circulators? Two things. Number one is we're requesting that you disclose it. And two is that if you're using one of these circulators and you collect signatures after this date, those signatures will be considered invalid. I mean, that would be a fairly easy way to have them self-regulate, wouldn't it?
I think so, yeah. And I mean, I will say that while we haven't put that information out, obviously, we did add to all the manuals at some point in the past, certainly by the version I'm looking at for the partisan petition manual from July 2025. We do have a paragraph in there that says, if hiring paid circulators, petition sponsors, and candidates should research circulator companies and check their work. Candidates and petition sponsors should be sure that they are hiring reputable companies or circulators that will collect and submit valid signatures as required by law. And petition sponsors and circulators should review petition sheets collected by circulators periodically during the collection period to ensure valid signatures are being collected and all required components are accurately completed to maintain signature and petition sheet validity. So we have put them on notice that they should be keeping track of if they're hiring companies. I would imagine that would involve knowing what the company is and the name of the company. As the AG's office indicated, I'm not sure what the board can require in terms of disclosure of the companies at this juncture, but we can certainly put additional notice out there as the way the board is going to be treating these.
If you put that on the website, you're actually getting a little more mileage even from this, the degree of seriousness involved, because candidates read that as well. I know that, in a perfect world, the candidates would stay up late at night and read all of our manuals and commit them to memory, but that's not been the history so far. So if you put that out on the website, if that would suffice.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I think as long as it's, look, I think if we make public that these people are banned and they're aware of it, I can't imagine there's a effort or candidate out there who's going to be like, well, let me just try to be sneaky about it. So I think as long as we put that out there, yeah, I'm good.
Would you also then put on the website the effective date of, again, dealing with people who may already be dealing with these folks? On the website, if you put out the effective date that as of the 23rd, no additional signatures will be.
So we can assume that Mr. Wilmoth and Mr. Reed are not circulating and that they will be, I believe, incarcerated. I don't know if they're in custody at the present time. Is there a financial penalty imposed upon the limited liability corporations here? Because when you convict a corporate or limited liability corporation entity, the penalty, it sometimes is not particularly significant act, seems to me.
I don't believe they've been sentenced yet, so I don't know what the, like, I don't know that question, like what the penalties or anything like that, what any sort of sentencing would look like or anything like that.
Do you know if a financial, and maybe this is something to ask our attorneys, whether a financial penalty can be imposed upon a corporate entity which is convicted of a crime? I think so.
Yeah.
I really don't know, since I'm not a criminal attorney, you know, whether this can be something part of, obviously there would be,
My husband is a criminal defense attorney. I
well,
can
then, you know,
send him a little
send
message.
them a note.
Uh,
Obviously there's licensing issue, you know, with LLCs. I mean, there's some things like that, but I don't know what they're looking at as far as sentencing and penalties. I mean, you could have.
I mean, I know that it is a penalty which is imposed in many circumstances. I just don't know about this one, but it would be nice to think that a significant financial penalty could be imposed upon these entities.
It looks like in the material provided, there's significant financial penalties
It can be
Possible.
imposed on the
Oh.
that could
organization.
be imposed on them by the court.
Under, MCL 168.544C. The State Board of Canvassers may impose on the organization or other person sponsoring the petition drive an administrative fine of not more than 5,000.
It's not enough, but
No, it's not.
for these fly-by-night companies, it might be
Mhm.
significant.
If you,
Uh,
the court has the ability to impose significantly more fines than we do on this, on these issues. If we stay away from the financial fines, that would give the court maybe more incentive to use financial.
That's hard to say.
Right.
Can I ask if, is the investigation completed? Are there any charges pending for anyone else that you know?
I'm not aware of pending charges. I believe the investigation is complete. I'm not aware of any pending charges on anybody else.
Well, I do think that this conviction is going to send a strong message. And we hope that the petitions that come before us from candidates and ballot question committees will be carefully vetted and not contain fraudulent signatures. Or else, right? Or else, yeah.
Is there any additional discussion? Suggestions?
Just one, if you're, I would make clear in the motion, just an effective date to say effective February 23rd, 2026.
I was going to ask that question. If we, do we need to redraft that? We have a motion, but do we need to redraft that motion a bit?
I think if you want to do this motion, I would recommend just starting it off with effective February 23rd, 2026. Or I move that effective 2023rd, 2026, and then get into the motion. I would just, whoever's making the motion is most comfortable,
Put that in there. Okay,
just add that today's date in to make it clear that it's as of today.
okay.
All right.
I think we can go ahead. I would, always, I would still add, one final comment on this. This whole case, this whole issue, touches on a much larger issue of just how much importance is on the signature gatherers and how the ripples in the water grow with companies who are gathering signatures. As opposed to an individual volunteer who commits fraud. These are companies with large workforces. And again, some of these are companies coming into Michigan, bringing people into Michigan that we can't track. So that being said, I would entertain a motion.
I move that effective February 23rd, 2026, The State Board of Canvassers disqualifies Sean Milwath, Willie Reed, First Choice LLC, Mac Douglas LLC, and Petitions Reed LLC from circulating petitions for 4 years in the state of Michigan.
Support.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Moving along to number 8. Ms. Capatina, would you, you've asked for comment on new business. Please come. Em, if you would turn on the microphone at the base of the mic, it's a small button there. And if you would state your name and spell it for the clerk, and you have 3 minutes.
Good morning, Chair Housecamp and members of the board. My name is Lisa Capatina, Lisacapatina. I have served as an election inspector in every local and state election since 2021, an assistant canvasser for 2 years, and this past November, I was honored to serve as the chair of the Wayne County Board of Canvassers. It was this experience that provided clarity on the effect of recent legislative changes regarding the role of county canvassers. Per Michigan law, the role of county canvasser boards is now strictly ministerial, clerical, and limited to verifying the mathematical accuracy of election returns. Our current Attorney General and Secretary of State both affirmed that canvassers must certify results unless there is a math error. Our duty is to recount votes, not conduct audits or investigations. That directive, however, does not negate our ability to recognize election irregularities and chain of custody issues, nor prevent our ears from hearing the concerns of inspectors regarding failures in procedure, or from candidates and over 80 Hamtramck voters, regardless of their party affiliation, who brought allegations of fraud and stated feeling ignored by our Secretary of State. It also does not prevent our eyes from seeing the numerous corrections made on ballots during a mayoral recount. Our procedures and duties manual does state that if such reports of election malfeasance are brought before the Board of County Canvassers, the board should immediately notify the Board of State Canvassers so appropriate action can be taken. It is with that in mind that the details of the November 2025 election were submitted for your review on January 14th. On behalf of all those who work hard for accurate and fair elections, I respectfully ask your attention to this matter. For the dozens of voters that provided public comment who feel disillusioned with our elections, again, I respectfully ask for your attention. Many stated they immigrated to our country because of these very same election concerns that occurred in their home country and now question why they should even vote. I personally responded by asking they continue to stay engaged, volunteer to serve elections, educate themselves on process, keep using their voice and using their vote. I am now using my vote, or excuse me, my voice to ask your assistance. Take this forward to the appropriate investigative authority, not only for the citizens of Hamtramck, but for all of those who still want to believe in the integrity of our elections. I thank you for the opportunity to come before you today, your attention and your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you stay for just a second, given your role in
Yes.
canvassers? Director Brader, could you join this conversation?
Sure. Well, I mean, so there were a few different issues going back a while in Hamtramck specifically and in the canvas, and I can talk about them individually in terms of what we have done and what we can do about them. So the reference to past issues, I believe, is that the Hamtramck clerk has previously reported suspicious activity when it comes to collecting absent voter ballot applications and absent voter ballots. So there are restrictions both on the manner in which applications can be collected, that is a little bit more flexible, but you can't solicit to return an application for somebody. They have to ask you to do it. And when it comes to returning absent voter ballots, there's much more limitations on who's actually allowed to return a ballot for somebody. It has to be someone in their household or, a mail carrier, a couple other exceptions. And then in addition, there is, of course, the question of the signature on the absent voter ballot return envelope, which there have been allegations in the past of signatures that were not matching or missing. So the clerk has reported these in the past. As we always do in instances of allegations of criminal activity, we did refer that to law enforcement for investigation. So when we get an allegation of possible criminal activity by candidates or whoever else, a voter, whoever it might be, who is putting an allegedly fraudulent signature on an envelope, we will do some internal verification with what we can find, check with the clerk to get copies of documents. But at that point, we hand it off for criminal investigation. And I will just note, like, that's what we did with the circulator signatures as well, which is what led to these convictions. So we always do refer things for criminal investigation. So that's one issue and then that continued, I know the allegations of that continued into this election where they did have a high number of absent voter ballot envelopes that were rejected because either the signature did not match or because it was missing a signature. So that, there could be multiple explanations for that. But one of them, of course, is possibly criminal activity. I will note that the clerk's office in identifying those missing or mismatched signatures did their job. So that's a critical check in the process, is that before these ballots are tabulated, the clerk and their staff review the envelopes to make sure there is a signature and that the signature matches. So, just as we did with the signatures not matching on the petitions, the clerks, that is a check in the process to ensure that those ballots are tabulated. So that's one issue. Another issue that came up was that there were, I believe, 37 ballots, as noted in the letter, that were that these were absentee ballots, and they were checked into the clerk's office, and they were sent to the sent for tabulation at the counting board, but the ballots were not tabulated. They came back to the clerk's office in the envelopes, not tabulated on election night. And that created two issues. One, that should not have happened, obviously. There should have been better procedures in place at the counting board with the election workers to ensure that every single ballot, as long as it's appropriate for tabulation, every single ballot in an envelope gets tabulated. And there should be checks on the back end to make sure that at the end of the night, before everything is closed out, there aren't ballots that are still in envelopes that are going back to the clerk's office. So that is a training issue that needs to be corrected. Then the second issue is that when the envelopes came back to the clerk's office, they were not stored in a location where only clerk staff had access to them. So there were other city personnel that had access to that physical area. So that compounded the issue because it created a chain of custody problem where the board of county canvassers and ultimately a court then had to decide what it was going to do with these ballots, because they couldn't be sure that they had been stored in a secure area after election night. So the county board ultimately determined not to tabulate those ballots. The court agreed with them. So, I can't say what would have happened if the chain of custody or if the security of the area in the clerk's office had been better. Perhaps the board would have determined, or the court would have determined, that in that circumstance, it still would have been appropriate to tabulate those ballots. But that's another issue that the city needs to look at, is making sure that election materials, in particular, materials that are associated with ballots, are really in an area where only authorized clerk staff personnel have access to them. So those last two issues are issues that we can and will work on with the clerk's office. One, the training on the procedures in place on election day or during pre-tabulation to make sure that all the ballots that go to the counting board or the precinct are properly handled. And then also making sure that before, on, and after election day, when you have election materials, they are in secure locations. So those are definitely issues that we're going to work with the local jurisdictions on. There was an audit of just a standard post-election audit of Hamtramck. Because those absent voter ballots, there's still litigation ongoing. Nobody could touch those ballots or envelopes right now, but at the appropriate time, we will, when we can, also look at those materials and incorporate that into our training and corrective action going forward.
Thank you. So this is ongoing with the Bureau of Elections right now?
Yes.
And this will come back to this board for, at least for information purposes, for updates, will you?
Yes.
Does that, I guess this is a really critical one, because Ms. Capitini raised an important issue, and that is that the voters have the right to expect fair election process. And to qualify that, I would also tell you that this team in the Bureau of Elections shares that with you, and they work very hard to make sure that rules are followed, procedures are followed, transparency is followed, and every valid vote is counted. Did Director Brader answer questions for you?
A couple, and I would like to assure that as the Wayne County Canvassing Board, there were a lot of people that work in the staff, the assistant canvassers, that all equally share the concern to make sure that every valid vote was counted. And unfortunately, as a board, we ruled that we didn't feel that could happen with those 37. And also, and I don't know that Director Brader referenced this, those 37 were also exposed. So those ballots were opened in addition to not being tabulated, and then exposed to whoever broke into that clerk's office. But aside from that, when we did the mayoral recount, there were a significant number of challenges on ballots on both sides, and erroneous marks that looked like the ballot vote had been changed. So that was separate after the election that we were not able to address as part of an investigative body, but that also was something that we promised the citizens of Hamtramck, as well as Wayne County, that we would at least take those forward. And so based on our unified letter to send that to your board and the state, we have not even heard that there was affirmation that our concerns were received by you. So when we then meet again as a board, to be able to at least assure citizens that took time out of their day to drive down to Wayne County, and the staff that took hours out of certification to listen to them, it seems reasonable that we should at least have an update or could confirm your concerns are being addressed. That doesn't suggest that anything is going to be done with them, but at least it allows them to feel like they have been heard.
So two items for you. One is, two actions for you. One is, as you heard from Director Brader, this is an ongoing investigation being conducted by Bureau of Elections.
Okay.
And so that's number one. Number two, the material that you submitted, speaking on behalf of the board, has not been presented to us yet, probably because it's an ongoing investigation. I'm assuming that what you sent to Bureau of Elections for us to look at will be the subject of, will be on a future agenda.
Yeah, we can certainly give the board an update on what we found.
Okay, so I'll make you a personal promise. I'll make you a promise as the chair of this board that A will be on an upcoming agenda, and B, that it will be given the discussion time, the review time that it deserves.
Thank you. That seems very fair.
Does that meet you part way?
Absolutely. Thank you.
And thanks for all the work you guys do. You guys are front lines.
Back at you. I mean, it's true. We are all here obviously working for the right reason and to serve everybody in the state of Michigan. And so I appreciate actually even sitting here in your meeting. It was a great learning opportunity to listen to your discussion as you talked even about the petition circulators and signatures.
And we are one team. That's really important. Because the other piece that goes with that is I get to work with these folks, maybe from a different level than you do, from a different point of view. I got to tell you, everybody in Director Brader's office is as committed as you are to the election process in Michigan. And did you?
I have a couple of questions, and a comment. I was for a short period of time on the Wayne County Board of Canvassers before I was appointed to the state board, which was really a wonderful learning experience for me. And I recall an election where there were some ballots that were not counted, because somebody put them in an envelope and didn't put the envelope in the right place. And we had quite a discussion about whether there was chain of custody and they could be counted. And it was a difficult decision.
Mm-hmm.
And we ultimately decided not to count them, but it wasn't outcome determinative. And so the decision was less difficult than I think the decision that the Board of Canvassers made in this case. So as I understand it, there are two issues that I heard. One is fraud. Is there a current investigation going on in Wayne County, not with the Board of Canvassers, but with the appropriate law enforcement authorities?
I know that we've referred the allegations. I don't know the status of any state or local law enforcement investigation. We can try to get an update on that, though.
And the other thing I hear is that the proper procedures were not followed. And I hear you saying, Director Brader, that there will be additional assistance given to the clerk in Hamtramck. I'm wondering if there will be ongoing and really sort of comprehensive assistance given if, in fact, this appears to be a situation where it is needed?
Yes, I mean, we, obviously, our primary objective is to train and provide guidance to the local officials who run the elections. We don't run the elections. But depending on, how that training is developing, we will take additional steps to make sure that we're providing support, whether that be before or on election day, to ensure that that training has been effective.
Okay,
Am I dismissed?
yeah, I'm sorry. I was reading
Thank
a
you.
note here that I was writing.
Thank you again.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Mr. Brewer, you have a comment. Three minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mark Brewer, the law firm Goodman Hacker. I am legal counsel for the 37 disenfranchised voters in Hamtramck. So I thought it was important to set the record straight regarding some of the comments we just heard. The Wayne County Board of Canvassers is a defendant in that case because it did not cover itself in glory either during this episode in Hamtramck. So I would urge you to take that into account. The board deadlocked 2-2 on counting those ballots. The testimony heard here this morning made it sound like it was unanimous. Of course, we're not going to count these ballots. It was hotly disputed. So I just want to make sure the board is aware of that, aware that this is in litigation, pending in the Court of Appeals. And again, I'm just talking here narrowly about the 37 ballots. And I represent those voters, and that is my principal concern, to get those ballots counted regardless of the outcome. We think the case law is quite clear that they should have been counted either by the clerk or by the board. But at this point, we'll let the court decide. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Brewer. Comments, questions from any of the board members? Thank you all for your time and for your concern. Is there any other business before the board today?
There is one item that you raised previously.
Yes.
Chair Housecamp, and that is, and I believe we asked council about the possibility of requiring companies that circulate petitions or that hire circulators to register, out-of-state companies to register in the state of Michigan. There, Heather or Eric, the registration suggestion that has been made and discussed previously, board, has there been any further consideration of that or advice that you can give us?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question again? I couldn't hear part of your question.
I can't hear you. You can't hear me. Okay, so that's a real problem here.
Nobody can.
No, I was wondering about the possibility, we've discussed the possibility of requiring out-of-state companies that come into Michigan to hire and allegedly supervise petition circulators, requiring those companies to register in ways that other companies that do business in Michigan register. I don't know that it's necessarily an election law issue as opposed to a general kind of business corporate or corporate law issue, but it is one that I think we've raised a number of times. How would you recommend that we proceed with a question like that? Can it be required?
We can, I do remember that we've discussed this question before, and I think I wrote it down as something to look at, and I have not done that yet. So we can put it back on Eric and our radar to take a look at that. It's probably, right, there wouldn't be anything supported probably in the election law, right? So it'd be a question of
Right, and so
of corporate sort of business, which wouldn't be our division. So, I'd have to consult internally at Department of Attorney General to see, what assistance we could get from one of the other, our corporate oversight division, probably. So we can do that.
Well, if you could do that, that would be great. That particular question, Vice Chair, brings another point here, and that is it's my understanding, and I think it's everyone's understanding, that the legislature at this point, the House is looking at taking up something that would require out-of-state companies who want to come into Michigan and be selling services to gather signatures and who are bringing in out-of-state workers. There's two pieces to that. One is a registration through something like LARA, which at least lets the Bureau of Elections, the Secretary of State know that that company's here. That just seems to me like common sense. But the legislature is working on something there. The second part of that is that any company that's bringing out-of-state workers to Michigan for the purposes of gathering signatures be required as an employer to have a full detailed record of who that person is, identification, where are they from, a signature specimen on file. And then to tie all of that together, I understand from Representative Smith's office that the requirement would not be something where all of that had to be presented to the Bureau of Elections when a petition was filed, but that it would need to be available in the event of a challenge. So that's what's going on right now, completely outside of the board. Yes, sir. I do see your hand. Let me just finish this one thought here, Seth, because I'm almost at that point. I understand from the Bureau of Elections that we would have to, as the board, authorize them to be part of the legislative conversation on behalf of the board. Did I state that correctly? Director Brader, you look like maybe I
Yeah,
misstated.
no,
that.
if the board, as we've done in the past, if the board authorizes the Bureau to do so, we can provide technical support in terms of providing the board's recommendations to the legislature.
So I'm hearing what you're saying. My understanding of it is that the Bureau of Elections would in effect be our proxy with the legislature while the legislature was putting legislation together.
That's correct. I'll just say that the Bureau of Elections does not take legislative positions on behalf of the Secretary of State.
I get that.
So we would, we regardless, as our, in our terms of our secretarial support for the board, the Bureau of Elections can assist the board in its legislative efforts. And then depending on whether the secretary's office also is interested in getting involved, then the secretary's legislative office may also, they'll regardless, as a courtesy, like they would provide help, setting up meetings and things like that. But in terms of, if they're also involved in the legislation from a substantive standpoint, that would be determination for the Secretary of State's office.
So from our perspective, if we have a couple ways to go, the legislature is going to do what they're going to do. We can either have a voice and a seat and an observation of that, in effect, the ability to weigh in on that at the beginning, or the legislature will go out and put out the legislation and ultimately it'll come in front of us and our comments on it will be ex post.
Maybe it'll come in front of us. Maybe
Well,
it
again,
won't.
maybe they'll
Right.
invite us like they did last time, but
Right.
to my fellow board members, does it make sense that we would want to have at least a proxy that would allow us to be involved in the process?
I don't know if it's a proxy, but I think we could direct the Bureau of Elections to present our position in the legislative process which is what we have done before,
Okay.
as you know, right? So at this point, we're not sure that there is any kind of legislative activity, but Ms. Meingast has indicated that she will consult with the corporate folks in the AG's office and see how this issue can be addressed.
I have had communications from Representative Smith's office, and it's been an open invitation for us to weigh in and participate on things.
I think there's a question about whether it's a matter for the Elections Committee or for some other committee in the House.
That could be a
right.
question, but either way,
Right.
that
Either way, right.
communication is open right now.
Right.
And it's not something that Bureau of Elections has explained to me that unless we take some action,
Right.
they can't really advise us or be part of advising Representative Smith's office, at least on behalf of the board. I'm trying to be very careful what words I use, Director Brader.
I think, well, we did have a motion last cycle that the board used, which allowed us to assist the board in its efforts on some of the circulator legislation changes. So I think Adam is looking for that motion. And I would just recommend using that wording, because I think we pretty thoroughly considered that last time around.
Would the board entertain a motion like that? Yes. So
I think the main thing is if the board sorry to interrupt you, but in terms of wording, like if the board is basically authorizing the Bureau of Elections to provide support on behalf of the board.
can you put that motion together for us here?
Yeah.
You are now?
Working on it, yeah.
Would it,
Doing it.
if you work on the motion, I would, I think what we could maybe do is while you're doing that, we'll move on to John's comments. Yeah.
Yes, Jeff Shaper again, and you were talking about for-profit companies or licensed companies. I also suggest you need to look at NGOs that come in to help register voters, gather petitions, things like that. Rock the Vote, Democracy Works, organizations. So think about NGOs in this motion possibly of being registered in state too.
the motion, I think, is more to get to authorize the Bureau to be involved.
Yes.
The point you're making is extremely well made.
Yeah. So
And I
not
would-
just for profit or,
Oh, I get it, that any,
Not sure about
Yeah, I'm not either.
the NGOs. I mean, you're,
Yes.
you're moving in a much different direction than we're talking about. We're talking about companies that hire circulators to circulate petitions in the state, but not about other entities that are active in the political process,
yes.
which is a much bigger and both a larger and different issue altogether.
All right. But, I guess thinking about, things nationally, I mean, like you said, NGOs are people working the political process properly using their First Amendment rights. But, they do hire staffers. They do have people out there on salary working, usually they're supervisors of people doing, circulations and stuff like that. So just kind of keep that in mind. NGOs kind of overlap a little bit with these paid circulators. They may not actually pay. Well, actually, I'll take that back. I think there are a few instances, I remember in Iowa, where NGOs were paying circulators to go out. So,
there's two things here that seem to have come out from the history.
yeah,
One is that in a corporate setting, someone who is hiring and supervising and directing and paying signature gathering workers, someone who has the authority, or at least the perceived authority in their organization, to say to a signature gatherer, sit down, we're going to handle it for you. Somebody who's in a position to influence that. Number one, they have to be responsible, or at least we have to know they can be responsible. Number two is the bigger issue, which we saw with the Cornell West a year ago. And that is people coming into Michigan, people coming in who are temporary workers, who are working in neighborhoods, working in front of libraries, who are gathering signatures and then signing the information, that we have absolutely no way to know if that information is accurate or correct because they don't exist in the QVF file in Michigan.
Mhm.
And that was really where this conversation started. We're not trying to keep people from gathering signatures. We're saying, if you are going to gather signatures, you have a position of trust. We should know who you are.
That is correct. And I agree with you totally 100%. And again, NGOs do this kind of work. And I'm not saying they follow, they should be in the same rules, if you will, but, there should be consideration of what they do and maybe some guidance be given so that, let's face it, NGOs generally get youthful, exuberant people that tend to sometimes not do things so well. And so they should also be guidance in that way too. That's all I'm saying. I've seen that. So that popped into mind when you talk about registered from out of state. And I do know out of state or national NGOs do come in and do work here in Michigan. So
On the other
that's my
piece-
point.
The other piece of this is like a little bit like foundational, right?
Yes.
The technology is changing. All of this work is going to change radically in the next 2 to 3 years. The next election cycle is going to be radically different than this one. It's going to be AI driving it. It's going to be platform computing driving it. It's going to be electronic that are going to be involved, whether we want them there or not. So part of what we're doing, I think, here is talking about laying a foundation that says, if you want to be involved in this process in Michigan, there's guide rails, there's guidelines, and there's rules that have to be followed that require a formal rulemaking as opposed to a best
Yes, agree.
practice.
And, if you think about it, even though things will be transformed technology infrastructure wise, we're still talking about people with pieces of paper getting wet signatures from valid voters in the state of Michigan.
Correct. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Fracassi, did I get you enough time?
No, I'm not sure that this is the correct motion. Related to regulations of paid circulator companies, I think we were talking about registration. Regulation sounds broader to me.
Mhm.
So. um, Okay, I'll make
me
this
see it.
motion.
Are you changing it?
We're not.
Yes.
All we're doing is
Change
authorizing
regulation
them
to
to.
registration.
Do you want to jump in?
Yes,
Anything?
it's not.
And
Just
Paul doesn't want it at all, so.
Yeah.
You said wheels on it.
Registration instead of regulation.
Yeah, good. I don't have an objection to us having a conversation about it. We may disagree on what that
Right,
conversation
right,
is,
yeah.
but I don't have any objection to having a conversation.
Okay, so I have a motion to make.
Good.
I move that the Board of State Canvassers request the support of the Bureau of Elections and the Department of State in coordinating with the Michigan Legislature regarding draft legislation related to registration of paid circulator companies.
Second.
Been moved and it's been seconded. Any conversation? More conversation? No, we're good. We'll wait for Vice Chair Gurowitz to return the laptop and then we can vote. That being said, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's a big step forward. Thank you. Is there any other business? I'm sorry. Oh, we're good. There's no other business, then I would say we are adjourned.
Yeah.